It's beer o'clock on Real Ale Craft Beer. Today we've got a beer from Neame Brewery, and this is their Whitstable Bay Black Stout, described as wonderfully dark with a rich, silky taste. It's coming in at 4.2% ABV in a 500ml bottle. I have actually. I had the Spitfire Golden Ale a couple of months ago. That was all right. It was all right. Picked it up in Morrison's. I picked up this beer in Home Bargains. They had a Shepherd Neame Spitfire Lager in there, which I'm yet to review, for 69 pence. I kid you not. In 2022, a bottle of Spitfire Lager, 69 pence in Home Bargains. This wasn't much more money. This was about £1.30. There's the bottle cap. There's a little bit of it's not your classic Shepherd Neame bottle cap on this one. And I want to talk about this for a second before I get the beer out. But they've actually kind of rebranded this a little bit to Faversham Neame Brewery. Now I find that quite interesting. I'll talk to you about it in a moment, but I want to get the beer out into a glass and see what we get. Nice bit of smoke on the bottle opening. Beer in the glass. Now it's interesting because Shepherd Neame, up until recently, I don't know if they still do it, produced a double stout. And that was tremendous. It was a really, really good beer. Whitstable Bay was one of the first ever beers I reviewed on the channel. And it was a golden ale. It was a golden ale at something like 4% ABV. Whitstable Bay Golden Ale. Pretty sure it was. Now it's been rebranded as a black stout. I don't know what happened to Shepherd Neame's double stout. It was tremendous. It was a really, really good example of a big, thick, full-bodied stout. Something that the regional brewers always seem to get right. Whenever you have a stout from a regional brewery, they're always done correctly. Don't ask me the reason, but if you have a stout from Badger, if you have a stout from Brains, if you have a stout from Shepherd Neame, if you have a stout from Marston's or Green King, they're generally very good for whatever reason. They seem to produce good stouts, the regionals. This stout, we got a 1 to 2 finger, slightly off-white head, good levels of carbonation. It looks okay. There's no light bleeding through whatsoever. Throwing it round a bit. It definitely, I think my wrist twitched there a bit too much. There's definitely no light bleeding through this stout whatsoever. Good carbonation. Let's get the aroma. It smells like a decent stout. You've got pipe tobacco smoke coming through. A little bit of roasted coffee flavours coming through. Bitter dark chocolate. A little bit of sweet caramel. A certain dryness coming through. So they've used a real good quality roasted malt in the beer. Yeah, it smells pretty decent. Should we dive in? Cheers, everybody. Ooh. Ooh. Clean up my mess. Oh. Oh yes, Shepherd Neame. This is right up my street. A proper, dark, bitter, full mouthfeel, roasty, toasty stout. Carbonation pushes the beer on the inside of the mouth. If I'm going to be slightly, ever so slightly critical about the beer, is that it's probably a little bit, not much at all. This is a minute thing, but it's probably a little bit too much carbonated for my liking. It's a little bit hissy and fizzy in the mouth. And for a stout, you want more of a, it is full-bodied. It's definitely full-bodied, but you want more of a kind of a calmer, creamier mouthfeel for a stout. But it's good. It's very good. In fact, I'm going to put this beer down and I'm going to say stone the crows. Stone the crows, Shepherd Neame Brewery. You have produced a quintessential British stout. If you're thinking about, if you're watching this from a foreign land, from a foreign country, Europe, America, if you think of British stout that's been brewed for hundreds of years in the UK, if you thought what a stout would taste like and smell like, this would be it. This would be that kind of classic British traditional stout. It's lovely and roasty and bitter on the back end from all of the roasted malt used in the beer, plus the hoppiness coming through, the hops that they've used in the beer. It's a pull no punches, creamy, rich, bitter stout. Proper old school stout, this one. It's not very often you see stouts like that these days, or like this these days. I'm loving this. I'm absolutely loving this. This is my ideal stout. Lots of breweries these days, lots of craft brewers these days are producing pastry stouts. Overly sweet, sickly, sugary, sweet pastry stouts. There's too much vanilla in them, there's too much cinnamon, there's too much of this kind of hot chocolate powder that goes into them, that they're just overly sweet beers that have, I keep saying this and I'm not going to stop saying it. I think they're trying to get the J2O crowd. They're trying to get the people who go in sweet shops, the people, all of these kind of like dessert cafes that are opening all over the UK. People are skipping like the main meals and they're going to like dessert cafes and they're having great big desserts. I couldn't think of anything worse. I would much rather, I tell you what I always do. I always skip the dessert. I never have dessert at a restaurant. But of course, things change. The world changes. Fashions change. That's absolutely fine as far as I'm concerned. I'm not kind of overly complaining. It's just the way the world's going. Overly sweet, sickly desserts for your main meal. But I think some of these brewers now, they've spotted that hole in the market. They've spotted an opportunity in the market where people are rushing to these dessert places for their breakfast or for their dinner. And they're thinking, right, let's produce some of these overly sweet, sickly, chocolatey, pastry, marshmallowy, lactose beers for them. I'd much rather be on this side of the fence. I'd much rather be on this side of the fence. I tell you what, if you put in front of me right now an old oak table with a fire roaring next to it, and you pass me a steak and ale pie with thick rich gravy and some chunky chips and some marrow fat peas, and you handed me a pint of this, yeah, that's my element. That's my element. A little bit more, call me old fashioned if you want, a little bit more traditional. This is exactly what I want from my stout. Don't get me wrong, there's a little bit of sweetness, but the sweetness is coming from the malts in the beer. So there's sweetness over here, and then there's bitterness over here. But the bitterness is tremendous, it's terrific, it's really good, and the mouthfeel is creamy enough to be able to take that kind of creaminess, that kind of bitterness that's coming through. If you think of a coffee shop, you went into a coffee shop and you kind of had a double latte with extra coffee. You think of that kind of milky creaminess and the coffee. You're getting that same coffee from the beer, you're getting that kind of same creaminess from the beer. If you think of bitter dark chocolate, you've got the creaminess from the chocolate, you've got that lovely bitter chocolate flavour. That's in the beer. And of course, that little bit of sweet caramel as well, that sticky caramel, that's in the beer too. So chocolate, coffee, caramel, as I always say. The backbone of a very, very good stout. This has it in abundance. I love it. And I haven't even got to the, how are we doing for time? I haven't even got yet to the blooming Faversham Neame Brewery, which I'll be very quick with. The reason why I want to talk about this is because Shepherd Neame have a microbrewery down at their brewery. They were one of the first, if not the first, regional brewery to install a microbrewery kit to their plant. But they did it in such a way that they could strip it down and take it to a beer festival. I've not seen it myself, but I've heard stories in the past of Shepherd Neame taking their microbrewery to the Great British Beer Festival, and they're showing people how to brew beer along the way, and it's a tremendous process because you're not just tasting the beer, you're working out how it's kind of done, and you're learning things. But I've brewed on this kit. I brewed a ginger porter with Shepherd Neame about 10 years ago on their kind of craft brew microbrewery kit. And I think that's where this name comes from, the Faversham Neame Brewery. I'm wondering if this beer has been brewed on that same kind of small plant that they have down there. But for me, this is a wonderful idea, a wonderful example of a traditional British stout. It's got great lacing, good carbonation, jet black beer in the glass, beautiful aroma, and a Stone the Crow's fantastic taste. I like this beer enough to give it a Stone the Crow's 10 out of 10. It's a 10 out of 10 from Real Ale Craft Beer. You can, if you're lucky, if you pop your head in Home Bargains, you might be able to see a few bottles of this. It's tremendous. Clean the shelf. It's brilliant. Thanks for watching. Please put your comments in the comments box. Subscribe to our daily beer and food reviews. Give us a big fat thumbs up. Boom. Cheers.